Hey guys, so it's a pretty exciting day here if you've got a Sony camera. You get a free firmware update with a bunch of new features, much better AF, and yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. I mean, we knew about it for a couple months. I got to play around with some of the new features of the A9. Some of those have made it down to the A7 III and the A7R III, so I've been playing around with these all day, and I'll show you some of my impressions with it, some behind the scenes shots with it, how they work, and overall just the tips and tricks that you need to know for update 3.0 for the A7 III and the A7R III. Now, if you are pretty new to Sony, we do have a full review of the Sony A7 III and A7R III, but more specifically, you'll probably want to watch this video on 5 things that you need to know, kind of go through 5 big things that are different about these cameras and some of the other systems that you haven't used before. And then also, I do have a help guide on this camera going through every single menu setting for photos and how to change them and what kind of settings you will want to use. So you can download that. It is actually free. You can enter any amount that you want to in there. We appreciate support by you guys plugging in whatever amount, buying some coffee, anything you want. But if you want to put in 1 penny, you can absolutely do that and download that help guide. And I know it's been a really big help for a lot of people out there. Feel free to join our Facebook group as well. We're talking about these cameras and a bunch of other things. It's great to be able to post and see others in your community and see what others are doing with this camera. So first, if you haven't updated yet, the process actually takes place on a computer, and then you need to download some software, which you'll plug in your camera to your computer, and the software will do that sync. So kind of different from the way that I've done it in the past, where you would normally download something onto the memory card. I think this is a little bit more risky than the other way with the memory card. There's more things that can go wrong with the transfer process, but I had no issues on mine. I used a Mac. You can do it with a Mac or PC, and I used the USB-C port and was able to do the update. It took about 20 minutes, so if you haven't done it yet, keep some time. You do need to charge your battery and then make sure you've turned off any kind of sleep modes or something like that, because leaving your computer for 20 minutes might enable some of those and that could damage it. So hopefully things go well for you. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments and I will try to answer those for you. So let's take a look at the time-lapse functionality. And I have been talking about this lack of time-lapse for years, and I did an entire video on it. It's been pissing me off like crazy that we didn't have this. I'd pretty much given up on it because, man, it took so long to enable this. We finally have it. It's not bad. There's a couple things that you should know about it, and there's still a couple limitations I'd like to see resolved. So let's get into it. Right into menu 1 in the column 4, you can see interval shooting function. You click on that, and that gives you these options. So your interval shooting, you will need to turn that on if you want your next picture, the next time you hit the shutter, that will enable that shooting. It actually works really easily. You hit the shutter again, it will stop it, no problems at all. Your next thing is a shooting start time. That is how long after you hit the shutter will your first image be taken. And then the shooting interval, this is how many seconds or minutes or whatever in between each shot. Now, if you're shooting time-lapse, I've got a video on some ways to shoot time-lapse and some settings, so you might want to check that out. But there's a couple things that you might want to know if you're unfamiliar with this. But next is the number of shots. This is pretty generic, but one thing that is nice is that we see a preview of how long this is going to take. So if you're shooting 300 images or something, you'll know if it's going to take an hour or 60 minutes or whatever it is going to be. So that's good to see. And your AE tracking sensitivity, this is something that I don't see very often, but could be really good if you're doing like a night sky to sunrise. You're gonna let the camera automatically adjust for the changes in exposure. You can turn the sensitivity down on this to make it a little bit smoother and not as jumpy. So that's really nice to see. That's actually something I did not expect. Now in the next menu, we have silent shooting. Most cameras have this now. This is one of the benefits of mirrorless cameras, although even DSLRs like a D850 have this ability now, so it's great to see. And then shooting interval priority, which is not going to be relevant for most of the things that we're shooting in here, but if you're shooting in some of the automatic modes, it might matter for you. So that is kind of the basis. Now, something that's missing is we can't actually create the time-lapse video from this. To do that, you would have to use the S&Q mode. There's a tons of reasons why I hate using the S&Q mode for that. It's limited like crazy. So the only thing is that you will need to go to your computer, in order to put these images on there. And that's what I do for the most part. Sometimes it's nice to have something in camera that I can send to my phone right away, but really for any of my good time lapses, I'm going to record them as raw files and I will process those later in a computer. So again, if you have any questions on time lapses, check out that video and hopefully that'll help. But now let's get into kind of the main thing, and that is going to be the focusing. So there really are two main enhancements on the focusing side of things that we are seeing on this. One is that we have real-time face and eye tracking, and what that means is that before you would have to hit a button in order to enable your eye tracking, and then if that wasn't working, you would just let go of the button and then try another type of autofocus system. Well, now with it real time, what that means is that if it ever loses the eye, it's just going to keep tracking using any of the normal tracking modes, and then if it sees the eye, it's going to go ahead and pick that up. And you have a couple settings in here. So this is in AF2 menu, and it's called Face, Eye, AF Settings. We click on that, and here we have those. We can turn on our face and eye priority, and that will turn that on, because if you don't want to detect the eye or the face, you can turn that off and then it will not. Now, one of the new features here is this subject detection. So you can actually detect a human and an animal. We tried this both ways. I'll show you the animal in a second. And then we also have the detection frame display, so you can kind of see where it is detecting. I usually keep that on. And then the animal eye display as well. So those are some features that you have on that one. And overall, I would say the performance was really good. It had no issues tracking my son as he was moving around all the way to the ends of the frame. It picked him up as soon as he came back in. It was just one of the best, if not probably the best, other than the Sony A9, AF tracking system that I have ever seen, and it is unbelievable what you can do with this. So now we start getting into animal tracking, and I do have two cats, so we did get to try this out. And overall, the performance here was really good. It was actually way harder for me to get my cat to sit still for more than 2 seconds in order to take an image. That was really the struggling point. I did find that when it did lose the eye, it didn't go back to the face like it did on the human. It would really go anywhere that it wanted to. So animal detection in general is going to be harder with these cameras to do intelligently. The eye detection worked really well, but the default, if it missed the eye, didn't always get the face and the right people in the right places like it did in the human mode. So that's something to consider. Now, mostly this is just dogs and cats right now. Sony does say that they will enable some more animals in the future. So we'll see how this works. I know people have had success using a bunch of different animals. So it's basically using some AI to compare this to other images and things that it knows. So that's the kind of technology they're using. But yeah, overall, this worked pretty well. Now, unfortunately, we're not seeing any big improvements when it comes to video autofocus, and so you don't get some of that real-time tracking. And there were just a bunch of AF modes and tracking modes that the Sony A9 got that are not in this. And in one hand, it's a little bit disappointing because I saw how unbelievable that was. However, we are getting a better camera than we've had on any other system before. You're getting a free update. It's really nice to see Sony improving these. Hopefully they'll keep doing this. It took a long time, but it is great to see, especially now the competition is creeping up. So hopefully this helps you guys out. Please like and sub. So excited to share with you some more stuff. If you haven't checked out any of our other videos, go check them out right now. And we'll see you real soon in the next video.